So let's talk a little bit about what you can get at these places. So for time, I think we'll talk about beer and wine, and then we can talk about other drinks maybe next time. We'll see how we do on time. So first up is obviously beer. I think all of you know some kinds of beer. Maybe you like it, maybe you don't, but that's okay. The most common kinds of beer are mass-produced beer. And these are the ones that you see at 7-Eleven and all over the place. So mass-produced, this is not a super common phrase, but it's good to know. Produced means made, like they make it. They make that beer. And they produce it in mass, meaning lots of. Mass is kind of like tons of. Like they make lots and lots and lots of this beer. So mass-produced beer will be a big, big company that makes tons and tons of beer. And because of that, the beer is usually very simple and maybe it's safe, meaning it's not very strong flavor because they want lots of people to drink it and lots of people to like it and lots of people to drink lots of beer. So these kinds of beers like Budweiser, Coors or Coors Light, Taiwan beer, Heineken, these are all mass-produced beers. They're big, giant companies that make tons and tons of this beer and send it all over the world. Well, Taiwan beer, not so much all over the world, but all over Taiwan, right? So these are the most common kinds of beer. Most of the beer you see at 7-Eleven is this kind, and it's okay, but it's not going to have much flavor. A kind of beer that you might hear about is called craft beer. Craft beer means it's made by a small company and they don't make a lot of it. And so it's kind of like their craft. Craft meaning almost like their art. They're spending extra time to make it carefully and make it really good. So there are lots of different kinds of craft beers, and these are really popular in the US. Of course, big companies like Budweiser and Coors are very popular, but everybody wants to have craft beer. Like, oh, I want something that's special with more flavor, something interesting, okay? And you can see just by where they're made how they're different. So mass-produced beer, they're made at these huge factories. This is the Coors factory. My sister lived in Colorado for a few years, and I visited her. And when I was visiting, I went to the Coors brewery, meaning the Coors factory. Okay? It's a brewery, but it's huge. While a craft beer is made at something called a microbrewery. So brewery, again, is a place that makes beer. Micro means really little, small. So microbrewery like this, maybe they only make this much beer. And so craft beer, you're going to get more interesting stuff. Okay? So let's talk about a few kinds of beer. Now, you don't need to remember all of this, but you might hear it. If you go to a bar with a list of beers, you want to have some idea what they're talking about. Okay? If you just choose, oh, I want this thing, you might get something you don't really want. So a lager is like the safest kind of beer. It's really light flavor and it's not very interesting, kind of. So things like these mass-produced beers, the big companies, usually they make lagers. It's like a really light flavor beer. Like Taiwan beer is a lager, Budweiser is a lager, and they're not bad, but they're not like special. There's not a lot of flavor. Then a lot of these companies, these big companies will make a light beer. A light beer is even lighter than a lager. And these are almost like drinking water, kind of. They're supposed to be more healthy because there's less calories. They won't make you as fat. But there's also less flavor. So Coors Light, Miller Lite, and Bud Light are huge brands. They're super popular in America. But it's like, for me, I think, why would you drink that? It doesn't taste very good. The only reason you drink it is so you can get drunk, right? But I would rather enjoy something with more flavor, okay? Lagers are not bad. Light beers are not good, I would say. But yeah, they are more healthy, I guess. Another kind of beer is called an ale. So beers are usually either lager or ale. And ale means it has more flavor. Kind of. That's one way to think of it. An easy way to say is it's a little stronger, a little more flavor. And there are a lot of different kinds of ale. One kind is called a pale ale. Pale usually means like really white, but you can look at this. It doesn't look really white. But I think the pale comes from some of the plants they use to make the beer. Those plants are pale. They're like white colored, maybe. But a pale ale, so like we said, lager doesn't have a strong flavor. Ale has more flavor. Maybe it's more fruity or something. A pale ale has flavor like an ale, but it's a little bit bitter. Bitter like bitter. Oops, too small. A little bit bitter. Let's say slightly bitter. So pale ale will be slightly bitter. And that's kind of nice. Well, I think so. I think a little bit bitter tastes nice. Now, if we take the PA in pale ale, we have IPA. This is called an India Pale Ale. Now, what is that? It's a kind of pale ale that is super bitter. So it's really bitter. Okay? Now, so an ale has more flavor, pale ale a little bit bitter, IPA is very bitter. Now, why is it called an India Pale Ale? Well, the idea is people in England used to make beer and they would send it to India. A long time ago, India was part of Britain, or like the British Empire. So England India was a part of England, basically. And so people in England wanted to send beer to India. If they sent regular beer, like lager or ale, it would go bad. Like they would send it, it would stay on a boat for like a month, and it would be bad when it got there. An India Pale Ale, they make it really bitter, and that means it doesn't go bad. It stays fresh. And so they could send the beer from England all the way to India, and it would still be okay to drink. And so this kind of beer is really popular. I really like them, but they're super bitter. So you have to be careful. Well, some are very bitter and some are super bitter. Depends. And then one other popular kind of beer is called a stout. A stout is a kind of dark beer. Here, this is Guinness, which is the most famous stout beer in the world, probably. And Guinness is it's from Ireland. So if you go to Ireland, make sure to get some Guinness, okay? So yeah, these are some kinds of beer, and they go from very light flavor like a lager to a little bit of flavor with an ale. Then a pale ale is a little bit bitter. An IPA is very bitter. And then a stout, these are like very heavy. It's almost like you're drinking bread. It sounds weird, but it's very heavy in a very strong flavor. It's really nice, but it's like It will fill you up. Okay? So don't have too many stouts. Your stomach will hurt. Okay? Now, how about wine? I don't know a ton about wine, but I know a little bit, so I'll tell you what I know. The main separations, the main idea for wine is there is red wine and white wine and sparkling wine. These are the main things. So red wine is this dark wine that's made from dark grapes, okay? You could always go to a bar and say, oh, may I have a glass of red or a glass of red wine? And that's okay. That you can just say, may I have some red wine? And they'll give you the house wine, which means like their house red or house white. What that means is that the bar or the restaurant has one wine that they say, this is the wine we like. So they have one kind of wine that if you say, oh, I want a house red, they'll just take the house wine, the one they usually like to give to people, and give you a glass of that. Okay? So that's the safe thing to say. I'll just have a glass of red wine. Or you could say, I'll have your house red. Okay? If you want to be more specific, you could try one of these three. Now, this looks scary, but this is a French word, but it's the name of a wine. So this is Cabernet Sauvignon. Oh my God. Cabernet. So this is where English is hard. N-E-T sounds like nay. E-T at the end of the word in French sounds like A-Y. Cabernet. Oops. A-Y, not A-T. I can't type. So Cabernet. And then this second word is Sauvignon. Again, English is hard because you have to learn other languages. So we're learning French now. So the G-N-O-N sounds like N-Y-O, kind of. Sauvignon. Nyon. And then with your nose a little bit. So Cabernet Sauvignon. Can you say that? Cabernet Sauvignon. Pretty tricky, right? But this is a kind of red wine that is really nice. This is like probably the safest kind of red wine, kind of the normal kind. It's good. This one, the second one, is called Merlot. So don't say the T sound because, again, I think it's French. So no T. So Merlot. Merlot is a little bit of a stronger red wine. So it's a heavier flavor. Again, here's more French for you. This last one is called Pinot Noir. So again, no T sound. Pinot. So Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir. This is probably the lightest red wine. Or it's a light red wine. It's a little bit thin. It's not too strong, but it's pretty nice. So you might like a Pinot. You could say Pinot or Pinot Noir. Noir means black. But, well, it looks black in the glass, right? So, then for white wine, the standard is Chardonnay. This is CH, but it sounds like SH. Just because French. Kind of like the word chef, right? A chef cooks your food. It's C-H-E-F. This is Chardonnay. Chardonnay. Chardonnay is a kind of white wine that it's, again, kind of like the normal white wine. Cabernet Sauvignon is the standard red wine. Chardonnay is kind of the standard white. Then this one, the second one, is a little bit stronger flavor. Here's that same word again. Sauvignon Blanc. Blanc means white in French. So English is crazy because you have to learn other languages when you learn English. I'm not teaching you French. I'm teaching you kinds of wine, and you have to say it like it's French. You can't say Cabernet Sauvignon. You have to say Cabernet Sauvignon. And it's a little bit like French. Or Merlot. If you say Merlot, people will laugh at you. Okay? So Sauvignon Blanc is this one kind of white wine. It's really good. It's a little bit of a stronger flavor, but it's nice. This last one is called a Riesling. Riesling is a little bit sweeter. So if you like sweet drinks, you might want to try a Riesling. Okay. The last kind is sparkling wine. Sparkling because it has bubbles in it. And people might have sparkling wine on New Year's or at a party or something. Okay? The two most famous are this one and this one. The first word, you've probably heard this before. It's champagne. Okay. Like I was saying, we're learning French. We say it a very American way, but it's a little bit like French. So the CH is a SH sound, so sh. So the first part is sham, and then the end is pain, almost like P-A, like ouch, pain. So champagne. That's how we say it in American English, champagne. I know in French it should be champagne, or something like that. But we take that, the French, and make it kind of like more American style or English style. So champagne. But you can't say champagne. That would be terrible. Okay. Yupe says, I'm curious, do these kinds of wine have English names? Or is it not common to translate them to English? No. Well, okay. These are the English names. That's the tricky thing. We take so for foods and drinks and places, we take a word from another language and just put it into English. Sometimes we change the sounds a little bit, but we keep the same word. This is really common for places and food and drink. So all of these things, these are words that come from French, but now they are in English. So if you go to a restaurant, the menu is in English, it will still say Cabernet Sauvignon. Okay? So that's English now, because we took it from French and it became English. This is a tricky thing about English, but it makes it very interesting at the same time. Like, let's think about something easier. These words are really complicated, but an easier example is like sushi. Sushi is not, well, sushi is an English word now, but it comes from Japanese, right? We didn't change the word, we just took it and changed the way we say it. For Italian food, you might get spaghetti. Spaghetti is a kind of noodle. We don't say Italian noodles, we say spaghetti, right? Or we say pasta. These are words from Italian that now we use in English, okay? Same thing with food from Taiwan. A lot of menus will translate into English, but I think people should keep it in Chinese. Like if I say danbing, if I had a danbing for breakfast, I think we should just keep it as that. Sometimes menus will translate it to an egg pancake, but that's not really what it is, right? So sometimes English will keep words from the original language. But very good question. So all of these names, this is now English. If you go to a place and ask for Merlot, that's English. People know what Merlot is. Okay? Hopefully that helps. But good question. So back to our sparkling wine. We're almost done. This most famous one is called champagne in English. In French, it's champagne, but it came to English, and now in English, we say champagne. Okay? One other is called Prosecco. Prosecco is a sparkling wine that comes from Italy. Okay? So these are hard words, but it's good to know them, good to recognize them, and try to say them. Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Riesling, Champagne, Prosecco. So if you like wine, you should know all of these. If you don't care about wine, you should know a couple. You should know Cabernet Sauvignon. You could just remember the first part, Cabernet. You should know Chardonnay. That's like a white wine. And you should know Champagne. Everybody knows the word champagne. So if you want to learn 3 words from this, learn those 3. Okay? Okay. Now, there's a lot to talk about liquor and cocktails. So I think we can save those for next time. If you guys are enjoying this and think it's interesting, we can keep on going. So we can talk about liquor, and some cocktails next week. Okay? What do you think? So yeah, today we talked a lot about bars and the bar culture, and then we started talking about beer and wine. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed what we learned. I'd love to know, what kinds of places have you been to? Or what kinds of places do you really enjoy? Do you prefer a bar? Do you prefer a cocktail bar? Or have you been to like a winery in California? Something like that. And then, like our question for this week, what kinds of drinks do you like to get? What's your go-to order? Okay? So I would like you to leave me a message, leave a comment, tell me about an experience you had at a bar or somewhere that has drinks like this. And then maybe tell us about your favorite kind of drink, something that you like to order. Okay? And if you guys enjoy this topic, if you want to learn more, next week we could try talking about some other stuff like liquor and liqueur. Okay? So yeah, let me know what you like, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay? So I think we can stop here. Hopefully the next time you go to a bar, you have an idea of what you can order or how to order it. Or even if you just see the menu, you can go, oh, geez, I remember IPA is really bitter. I think my friend would like it, but I will skip that. I'll go for something a little bit sweet. I want a wine, but I want a sweet one, so I'll get the Riesling. So hopefully learning some of this stuff will help you next time you're at a restaurant and you see this menu with all these crazy words. Oh my God, pale ale, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, a lager. Hopefully what we learned today will make it a little bit easier. Or at least you can say, oh, I think they're talking about a kind of beer, right? You don't need to remember everything, but this might help you figure out, oh, okay, they're talking about this kind of thing, okay? And yeah, and if you go to the US someday, make sure to visit a brewery. And maybe you could bring your kids if you have them, okay? So yeah, let's stop here for today. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you had a good time. And yeah, if you go out this weekend, enjoy your drinks. If you have a beer or wine, okay? Have a wonderful night and take care of yourself, okay? Bye-bye.